Modern medicine is built off the back of traditional medicine, but every time we hear of native doctors, we just go into, a negative vibe.
Some of these herbalists even cultivated the new forms of medicines we use today.
Even modern medicine has a lot of things to learn from traditional medicine.
Also, back then, you take some things, overdose of some certain things. Because you don't know, there were no pharmacists back then.
Or what if we had ancient pharmacists, but because of that break, that colonial...
Yes.
So maybe those pharmacists were now out of work, and people then just started self-medicating like agbo.
Some of the treatment they use, they did work. It just in the variables they work were not as complex as it is now.
Now, we can now continue with that narrative that traditional medicine is not that important
Clearly
or is a placebo.
Modern medicine is built off the back of traditional medicine, but every time we hear of native doctors, we just go into, a negative vibe. But these things can exist side by side. They can work together. And even modern medicine has a lot of things to learn from traditional medicine. And it doesn't mean that, one has to fall for the other to fly. You can mix both of them. The key is just knowing how to balance it. Like, there are instances where you hear someone saying, okay, I have an issue, but then I tried modern medicine, it didn't work for me, and then traditional medicine worked for me. I know Mr. G has stories for this.
Yes, I have a story. So many years ago, about I think 10 or 15 years ago, my aunt came from the village. She was looking at raising money to set up her own business back at the village. She braids hair and all of that and so on. So she came to the Abuja and she stayed in our house. By braiding hair, she became friends with everybody in the neighborhood. So women from all over the neighborhood would come braid their hair. So from there, you know how women are. They started talking and this woman opened up to her that she's been married for about 6 years and they've been trying to conceive and they've done everything. They've tried all the modern medicine they could try and nothing worked. So my aunt was like, okay. She asked the condition and I can't remember the condition. The lady told her and she said, you know what? I'll go to my village and bring some herbs. It's not diabolical. She had to stress that part out because of, the demonization of our traditional medicine. She stressed that, went to the village, brought the herbs. Lo and behold, 4 months after, this woman took in, after some months, she delivered the most beautiful baby girl I've ever seen. Now, I had to ask her, do you know these herbs? Do you have a record? She just said, her grandmother taught her the herbs, told her how to prepare the herbs and all that. Now, the problem with things like that is that we don't have that morphology of the type of plants.
True.
The bark, what leaves do you mix together? And this is to also shock you that after several things that this couple had tried, they just did herbs. And what are herbs? Maybe leaves, a bark and some things, maybe some roots, mix it up together. She drank it and boom. It just brings to say, like what you said at the beginning, at your intro, sometimes you try modern medicine, it would not work, and you try traditional, it worked. Now, we can now continue with that narrative that traditional medicine is not that important
Clearly
or is a placebo.
I mean, I hear you, but I strongly believe that both of them have their roles to play.
True.
Very
right?
true.
There are things that I believe they used to do in ancient medicine that's with the modern medicine, you realize that things weren't balanced. In fact, for some people, they were doing more harm than good. Because now with modern medicine, they get to test your blood levels for different things, as opposed to saying just go and eat dogoyaro leaf. With modern medicine, they'll test your blood level. If eating plenty dogoyaro is actually bad for you because of something else, they can measure. And sometimes I feel like also back then, you take some things, overdose of some certain things. Because you don't know, there were no pharmacists back then. So what if the reason this person died, even after they gave him all these things, was because it was just overdose of that thing? that was now crossing over into something else.
Or what if we had ancient pharmacists, but because of that break, that colonial...
Yes.
So maybe those pharmacists were now out of work and people then just started self-medicating like agbo. They would just take agbo and just take the whole bottle, like, so our ancient pharmacists, the babalawos, the native doctors, the DBRs, like people have demonized them. So even when you want to take agbo, you will not think, let me go to babalawo and ask him, how many cups of agbo should I take? Or how long should I boil my iba leaves? Things like that.
Yeah, so even now with those things, there were the guys that just did herbs. And then there were the people that did, I want this person to
so that's the spiritual aspect.
Yeah, do you understand? There are the spiritual aspects, and there were the guys that stuck with herbs.
Yes.
You're sick, you're going to this person, they'll keep you in their shrine for a couple of days, and all through those days they're just rubbing you with different leaves, giving you different things
oils
to drink, and you're just sleeping and
resting.
Eating. You're on admission.
I like that.
I guess, to be honest, from the perspective you look at it, because back then, like as you said, right, there were what people call witch doctors, and they were actually herbalists, right? And some of these herbalists, like, even cultivated the new forms of medicines we use today.
Exactly.
Because some of the treatment they use, they did work. It just in the variables they work were not as complex as it is now. And I can tell you, like, there was a guy that I read his research where he quoted the doctor. He said, right, nature has provided everything for us to heal from, but we can't yet access it. Yes,
Exactly.
but nature has provided every single thing that our body needs. It's right there, out there, that we need. So most likely our ancestors didn't just have the technology back then to convince all this into in a form whereas we can use it as we are using it right now. But most of those herbalists, the drug, the medicine they have used have given, like, modern medicine the starting point to turn things into the way they are right now. But some of those drugs are not even consumable in the form that they were in. You understand?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, now it's easier taken, it's easier used, and it's easier manifested.
But another thing again, when it comes to Africa, we're highly spiritual. We take inspirations from, the spirit world, from the animal kingdom and all of that. It's possible these people we call witch doctors, maybe they get some kind of deity that will tell them, go to the forest. The morphology of this plant you're looking for is this shape. Maybe the leaf is star-shaped. Go for that star-shaped leaf, blend it, put it together, and make it work. Because now, how do you explain somebody who is, free to nature, going... Now, there are millions and thousands of plants in the forest. You skipped everything. You walk to a certain plant, and this plant, if I chew this plant, it will heal me of malaria. And it worked.
I'm sure they did a lot of trial and error before they got to that point.
If they chew through all the leaves, it means the generation before then, the population must have reduced to the point of extinction.
I have a story for that.
And that didn't happen.
I have a story for that.
That didn't happen. No, the population in the world right now is definitely larger than the
It's the largest it's ever been.
What I'm saying, you don't understand me. I said, but then, if they had to chew through all the leaves,
then a lot of people have died.
A lot of people would have died.
We're not there.
And they would have gone into extinction. So it means maybe some spirit being or some deity was whispered to them to say,
sorry, I'll let you get to that story. You know what? Go ahead with the story first so that I can argue well.
Okay. My point is that, right, I was watching a documentary about a doctor, right?
Okay.
He's also a physician, right? He had gone to Western Medical School. They call him, so he's from Senegal, Dr. Eric.
Okay.
So right now, he said when he was small, right, he first learned, like, the traditional medicine from his granddad and his father before he went to Western Medical School. So now he said when he was growing up, right, he saw a bird, right, and it was in a nest where he kept its eggs, right, and so it laid 2 eggs, right, and one of the birds hatched and it was going out. Well, the other one hatched, but it was always indoors, and he never saw the bird fly out.
Oh wow!
So the other one the mother kept bringing in some leaves to the other bird, and what happened was the other bird was blind. You understand? So those leaves now that the other bird kept bringing to it, and the other bird was able to see, and he flew out. And he said, from those leaves, he picked them up, right, and started using it for treatments for some other people that had conjunctivitis. You understand?
I have an example.
I believe that our ancestors also learn from nature, from what is around us. They observe from the animals, the trees, the
pillars, observation, the first thing in science.
So I believe they did not try everything. There was not trial and error.
They completely observed. For example,
there will definitely be some people that
the gorillas, like for the gorillas, when they have parasites in their stomach, like they have worms, there are certain leaves. it's not about the maybe the chemical composition of the leaves. It's the way they fold the leaves when they swallow. They don't chew the leaves. They fold the leaves in a certain way and swallow these leaves. Why? It creates jagged edge around the leaf. So when they swallow it, as they pass the leaf, it plucks and pulls all the parasite and they pass it out a stool.
I was going to say that.
Is that why the
our
gorillas
dogs
also have
at home
I don't know.
actually
Maybe
do
they're
that.
having a hard time.
Dogs are carnivores naturally, right? But like our dogs, they are late now. But they used to do that. Like they would eat and maybe be bloated or something, and they would just be eating my flowers. I would be angry. But then those dogs knew something.
Yeah, they knew something.
They would eat plants and all of that. And I guess it was to help their digestion and everything. Yeah. So I guess by observing nature, like you said, our ancestors were able to say, if these animals are doing this and it's working for them,
let's also try
let's do it. We can see that even in exercising, like they say downward dog and upward dog, it's from animals, the way they stretch and do yoga. That's how human beings observed it. And we're like, when animals wake up, they feel tired, their limbs are, strong and everything. They're like, okay, let's move our bodies. Let's do it like this. Okay, why don't we copy the animals? So you're right.
So go ahead with your story.
The story that
I said that that, right? Back then, at least in Yoruba tradition, a lot of the people that were healers and all these things, they were women. Now, whenever somebody just does something that is out of the ordinary or it just seems very advanced, either medically or scientifically, they're automatically witches. Maybe that's why they are called witch doctors.
Yes.
Do you understand? So now, why am I saying this? I really feel like I can't argue against this, But my point is, I believe that as much as, ancient medicine is great, it's fab, there are so many things that they used to do then that, are less detrimental. But I feel like it's supposed to work hand in hand with modern medicine.
I totally agree with that.
Like in terms of things like knowing the quantity of stuff to take, knowing what works with your body.
Even how to pass it down.
Allergies.
Yes.
Allergies are such a real thing. There are people that still don't believe that I am allergic to a particular fruit. They're like, oh my God, it's so nutritious. How you
allergic to like catfish? But I still eat it, so I force
I want to did natural selection. You're allergic, you die. And they move on.
Or they'll be like spiritual attack, like this one is possessed. That kind of thing.
Oh, this child is not normal. For you to be reacting to this, no, it must mean that the gods or something.
Maybe they are punishing you. You did something or something.
But okay.
Somebody quoted he said that you don't need to believe in herbal medicine for it to work for you. You understand? There's a kind of like, what would I say now? People are demonizing it, where you feel like we have the witch doctors, but the herbalists that do this, you have to separate them to understand that those people actually went and they actually took the time, they studied and they passed down this knowledge down to their generations that now treat people. You understand? But now, whenever we talk about herbalists, straight up, which black magic, voodoo, we're taking it right from the negative aspect. Whereas if these herbalists if we had actually curbed their knowledge and we actually modernized it, it would have been a very perfect starting
It's just
point.
like the story I gave of my aunt. Before she got the herbs for this woman, she had to stress the fact that, look, it's not diabolical. We're not doing any witchcraft. They're just regular herbs that I'll go to the village and mix them up together. And it worked wonders.
Speaking of herbs, it just made me remember Ajumbise, what they give new moms when they just give birth. So you can use to take pepper soup. I think you also have it when you're pregnant.
Oh, okay.
It helps you lose weight. It increases the amount of nutrients that the baby needs.
Oh, wow.
Helps with breastfeeding and just
Never heard of that.
Many other benefits. So now, let me go back to my argument. See, I strongly feel like another downside of traditional medicine when you compare it to modern medicine, I mean, even though modern medicine, it gets in over body, right, is the fact that when it comes to things like childbirth, women used to die all the time. In fact, it was a thing where the midwife would put the man aside, right? Maybe not the midwife, but like the person they communicate to, and that would now communicate to the father of the child. Okay, so if this thing goes like this, should we save the mother or should we save the child?
Scary shit.
Should we save the mother or should we save the child? Okay, if it's two children and one is should we leave that child and choose? Which child will you choose? With modern medicine, those things have reduced. Like with the cesarean section, before, once a child is in breach, there are some traditions that just automatically give up on the child. They tell you, the child is in breach, we have to tear her open. Yeah, especially in a lot of this medieval when you read a lot of medieval stuff and you read about ancient Europe and all of that, they would just see the child is in breach.
That's
We need to cut her
crazy.
open to get the child out. She may not survive.
And that's just crazy because in ancient Africa, in Uganda, around that same time, people were doing CS. You know, so instead of, it's in breach or, someone has to die, the doctors, the midwives at that time, before colonialists came to Uganda, to East Africa, they were already carrying those kind of birds.
I always have if you go down and actually read your history down to the books, you realize that modern medicine actually evolved way in Africa before it even went down to Western Europe. Because the god of medicine, and everybody call him Hippocrates right now, he said, if you read some of his journals and research paper, he always mentions an Egyptian physician who they said is the father of medicine, Imhotep, and which the Greek also changed his names in different levels. And he always keeps calling back that he used his paper. So you definitely have to know that Africa, way back then, even from the Egyptian civilization, have been practicing medicine in various forms that the Europeans have not yet even evolved to
practice. Now, to also shock you, in East Africa, there's a tribe in Kenya, and I think around that region, they actually practice brain surgery before modern medicine.
Wow, I think I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Well, it's scary.
It's scary.
The after result.
It was, it was.
Was either that or death?
It was not the pleasant. It was not the pleasant of modern times. You understand? It's really. I don't know how to, for like gory.
That's the
terrible
word.
to look at, and the after effect is
you'll be wearing a cap.
Did they have painkillers then?
No, they had painkillers.
Like
they had some herbs you chew to reduce the pain, and they would even speak with you as they do the procedure,
which is good to make sure you maintain your motor function.
Now, how did they get all of that knowledge?
I actually believe our ancestors were they were above their time.
I mean, if they say human beings migrated out of Africa, we are the most ancient of the human species. So whatever is modern now was built off the back of what the ancient Africans were already doing.
Our ancestors didn't just have the apparatus, right, to turn whatever they have into modern medicine the way it was now. Because if you see the ideas, the science from way back, their research, they just didn't have the apparatus, the facilities to actually make it what it is. So I can say the knowledge they have was too superior for the time they were in.
We just need better systems of documentation.
Yes.
Because in science, you can't just be using oral tradition. And that's where we're having
the problem where modern medicine doesn't actually agree so much with traditional medicine is the fact that, right, whenever, for instance, these herbs, you said your auntie took and that, modern medicine needs an explanation. You don't just say they took the herbs and it did this. Why? How did it work? What chemical component? What was the but then we just mix some tweaks and okay, it works. That's why modern medicine doesn't always agree with traditional medicine.
After she took the herbs, did she sweat? Did she stool? Did she throw up? Like, what were the signs? Someone should have observed.
How did she feel?
Written it down.
They would have documented all of that. Totally agree with you. But I think that's why it is Africa. Our systems are different, but the result is oriented. So that's what I feel.
We need better systems.
We definitely
Or
do.
people will keep on taking credit for things that we already created, invented. Because if you don't document your work, someone else will document it and patent it. It is what it is.
Going back to the doctor I was telling you about, right? He also created a small village outside of Dakar in Senegal, whereas he was treating people. So a doctor all the way from US came down to him during the when Ebola spread around, and he asked how were they containing it and how were they dealing with it. He said his ancestors already had the answers to this disease way before time. They just had to have access to it. And they picked some twigs and this, and he said they sent it down to a lab down in the US, and they actually invested. And when they took those serums out of them and they took it to another lab to go and check whether this is actually fighting the virus, it was. But there was no scientific backing to it. That was the problem. These twigs were actually reducing it. But okay, how can they make it in a way? How can they make it in a way where this is actually soluble and it actually works for everybody? It doesn't have side effects to everybody. Now that was the question. But they saw that the research was actually working. It was actually reducing the viral load of the Ebola virus.
Wow.
But how can they contain this? So now that's where it comes back to the documentation, as you said, because his ancestors just passed the knowledge down to him, and he doesn't actually know how this is done, how it works. What actually is the side effect? Are there side effects?
No. But one important thing you mentioned, that they took the twigs, they did their laboratory test and all of that, and it showed in evidence that this thing worked. My question is, how did that guy in the African village, the African area, know that if you put these twigs together, it will work? This is the mystery that we're yet to...
history.
Yes, this is the mystery we're yet to unlock. How did our African ancestors know that if you, amongst the millions of, trees and leaves and plants in the forest, that if you put these two combinations together, it will do this? That's the mystery I'm still trying to see how
they
we
were
can
scientists
unlock.
too, just not in the modern sense, but they definitely must have been scientists, because it takes observation, patience, doing your research, experiments, and then them failing and you doing them all over again until it works. So it takes a scientific mind to even achieve that and then pass on that knowledge around your community from one generation to the other.
And the very painful thing about this, I'm very certain that some combination or some herbs would probably have died with whoever had the knowledge of it. That could have changed.
That's why we're like
world health
documentation
today.
is very,
that
very
would have
important.
changed world health today.
Yes.
I have a theory, right? For finding cures to... There's the legend of this guy. He was from Asia, and in order to discover teas and herbs and all those things, he was tasting them as he was going and recording how he was feeling with everyone. Luckily he never died from it. But felt really, really sick.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody's particular, their individual life experiences contribute to their knowledge of the herbs that worked at the time. Like now, that story you shared about the person with finding the cure for conjunctivitis and everything. What if it was just somebody, he had a loved one who was sick with that particular illness, and then he traveled, and then maybe he has heard of how this thing worked for this or that person, or you understand? And then he just tried it, and then tried leaves that looked like it, and something just worked.
But how did he get the information from those people that got the information from the main person that put the leaves together to know that these things will work?
G, are you saying there's a mystical aspect?
Not
to
really
it?
mystical.
That's what it is.
No, the thing is, look, the thing is, like I said initially, we are very spiritual, and we also copy nature.
Very true.
And I'm so glad when I said we also copy nature. Bonga brought up the example of the guy from Senegal that he observes. Even if you look at some of our marriage rites, look at some things we do. If you look into the animal kingdom, some things, they look the same.
Yeah.
So Africans, we try to live in harmony with our environment and with nature. So I'm sure, aside nature, maybe there's some spiritual being that whispers some of these things to us. You could get it maybe through revelation in a dream or something, because I still don't understand how you walk maybe if you've ever been to a thick jungle, you walk kilometers and there are thousands of leaves that you could easily miss. How would you skip all of those numerous thick vegetation, come to this leaf that when you mix it together, it gives you relief or even cures your ailment? Something spiritual and natural or mystical is involved in the African science for health and medicine. That is my submission, because that I strongly feel no human on earth will just wake up, walk into the thick vegetation and see something. And see the leaf and say, hey, this star-shaped leaf with this red velvet-colored whatever, if I mix it together and boil water, and it will work. Something must have revealed these things.
But like you said, maybe they've been observing the baboons.
Yes, I agree with that. But aside that, how many baboons and birds are you going to watch?
I totally agree.
And let's not forget that Africans, we are all about substance. We sustain ourselves with hunting game. So who would have that time to hunt, to observe the gorilla when he's looking at the gorilla as meat that would feed the village? Have we thought about that angle as well? You see the birds. The average African man wouldn't sit down and watch the bird. He wants to catch that bird, pluck up the feathers to decorate his hat or whatever, and eat the bird.
I totally agree with you that I'm sure to an expert, right, there was a form of divinity in some sciences, because definitely our ancestors, we believed in our ancestors, we believed in our African traditions, whereas they were separate. They were also herbalists that were just pure scientists that actually did the fact, did their historical studies to actually do it. I think I watched a video where I saw in an area, they were looking for water. There was drought in the place. So
I think I saw
you
that.
saw that,
in the
right?
Kalahari Desert,
and
the
what he did is that, right? He brought salt and gave it to a monkey, and the monkey he kept eating it. And what he did, he now released the monkey, and he was just following it because he knows that the monkey knows where water is, and he goes, and when the monkey took him right to the stream. water that they have been looking for so long.
In the
the monkey
desert.
took him to it. So yes, I believe
Because for
that
animals, it's survival. So
Yes.
Survival.
So their instincts would,
their
you know,
instincts are
kick in.
different from
They can
ours.
smell water,
They can
they
smell
Exactly.
and all of that.
differently.
Yes, they have such senses to you know, detect some of these things. And I think deviating a little bit, I think even in the Western world, you know, they also take a cue from nature. The Wright brothers, the reason why we fly today, they sat down and they looked at the birds and said, if these birds can fly, man can also do the same. And they started putting things together. And today, look at the way we fly left, right, center. So I think in all cultures and maybe even races, we take that cue from, you know, the animal kingdom and nature that we live in. And coming back to Africa, there's something special about us that makes it amazing. I still go back to that story of my aunt. They tried modern medicine. They did everything. Just some freaking leaves and barks put together
They
and
clearly
boiled.
were not freaking leaves.
Yes.
You know, and all of that and put together. And sometimes they'll tell you, make sure you cook it in a clay pot. I don't know the significance. Maybe the minerals
I think it's
from the
it's
soil.
to preserve the
Maybe
minerals.
maybe the minerals from the soil, from the clay, also adds value or some kind of chemical composition that would help treat that ailment or maybe give you that possibility to bear child. And I think having that science to be able to bring a child into this world is mystical, mysterious, and wonderful at the same time.
It is.
I know you have like 2 kids now, right?
Yes.
What was it like watching your wife give birth?
I don't want to ever do it again. It was not a sight to behold. The screams, the shouting, the pain, all of that. And the very painful part for me, I never knew they usually cut the woman until that day. My second child, you guessed right, I didn't go because I did not want to traumatize myself.
Wow.
You know, and I think talking about childbirth, how did our ancestors do it back then? You made an interesting point of, death rates then were pretty high and all of that. But there are those that were successful. How did they do it?
I think it's
without
just
anesthesia, without drugs. Maybe there were herbs they gave to them. Maybe there were things they ate that gave them that superpower to be able to deliver the way they did. Because if you listen to your great grandmother or your grandmother, if you had the opportunity of meeting them, they would tell you, the children of nowadays, the way they act, then we just go and the what they call those women, the midwife will just come.
I think that has so many other
many things, and before you know, boom. That's how I gave back to 10 children. That's how I gave back to 15 children. Now, just one. I have a friend who has just one daughter, and she said, finito. She's not going to give birth again. So, how did they do it?
So there are multiple things, right, that I want to pick out from what you said. For one, you said, how did they do it back then versus now? I feel like even back then, there are things that we eat now that they didn't touch with a 10-foot pole. We have more processed sugar in lots of foods now. Like even down to the things you used to cook. As long as it is, prepackaged food, it's processed food. It has some level of sugar in it, or it just has something that is bad for you.
Yes.
PCOS is, I don't think we had ways of tracking it before, but it's definitely super high.
Right now,
1 in every 4 Nigerian women has PCOS.
Crazy.
Do you understand? So, I mean, it makes me ask, was it still popular then and they just didn't know what it was? Or is it that they had herbs to still manage it then? So now that's one. Then you mentioned that they had to cut people, like now, to give birth. Well, I think they still did then. But for the people that were very holistic and, took proper, delight in helping women give birth, women used to squat to give birth now. Yes. It's not like now that they make you rest your back. And not like I've ever pushed out a child, but what I see, they make you lie down. And it just makes sense, like physically to squat, because gravity does its own. And then it gives you a wide, it expands your pelvic outlet and allows you to push more. And then weeks or months to your delivery, I think probably weeks, okra water.
Exactly, because it's
it's so slimy. Exactly, okra water, ewedu,
all those things.
So there's certain things you eat in preparation for that D-Day.
Yes, certain exercises. They'll tell you, if you know that you're going to give birth in a couple of weeks, make sure you walk around a lot. Make sure you do this. Make sure you do that, so that when it's time, it's easy. a lot of people don't do that.
They don't.
a lot
But a lot of
don't
people
do
are
that.
going back to that okra water thing right now.
Yeah.
Yes, which is good.
I think like what you said, a lot of factors played into the fact of even some of the diseases we're actually facing right now. Because like, as you said, some of the foods we're eating, we didn't even have access to them then.
Yep.
The GMO, the food plants, our ancestors just grew the tree and they ate it.
Oh, you go
a corner, they eat it. Or you got down,
from nature.
They're not like preserving food for a week or a month in a refrigerator. You understand? And they actually just took what they needed. They didn't take outside of that.
Because you can't even preserve it.
You can't even preserve it. And nothing was created in
Which was good
factories
for
or
the
labs.
environment.
So definitely now, diseases that were not even existent back then are more visible now. Not because they were not there, but because they are more visible now because we are doing things that our body cannot take. Like I said before, like he said, nature has everything for us. Like anything we need to survive, nature has given it to us, but we are creating our own. We're creating everything from the lab. So how do you expect nature to give you what it did not create? Nature cannot solve a problem that it did not create. Exactly. If the problem was from the lab has to solve it.
And I think maybe because another thing with modernity comes with a sedentary kind of lifestyle. Most people, the most work they do is from their doorstep to their cars, from the car to the office, and that's it. They don't do any form of exercise. But back then, you would walk kilometers to go get water. You walk kilometers to go fetch firewood. You walk miles to go get, vegetables. If it's fruit season, you have to go pick these things.
True.
And the human body was not made to just sit back and do nothing. You have to apply yourself. And by applying yourself, you're doing exercise, not even knowing, taking that walk, those walks to the, have you ever gone hiking before? The amount of physical exercise and exertion you apply your body to, you would not, it's worse than even doing any kind of exercise. Now, some of these people have to scale mountains, for example, to go get some certain fruits or get waters. Now, these things are exercise, and that's what the body needed. Now, you do all of these things and you eat fresh, healthy foods. Your body is intact. Your body is A-okay.
Yeah.
So I think, a whole lot of things have changed with, modern life. Now, if you look at medicine, the modern medicine, their medicine, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the rationale behind it. You're taking this medication to cure this ailment, but the downside is that is destroying your kidney.
Something else. So there's always side effects.
There's always side effects. Why? It doesn't make any sense. And the doctors will not tell you. You keep taking them. After some months, they tell you come for periodic checks, maybe every 6 months. Then when they check your blood level, they'll wean you off this, give you another lesser evil, and you continue. Now, if you look through social media, there's beginning to have this consciousness about herbal remedy.
True.
Using traditional methods. Do you know that the fruits in your house, the mango trees in your house, if you are diabetic, okra is one great remedy for your insulin. Fresh mango, sprouts, the leaves are amazing for you. Sour sop. There's so many things, even your rosemaries.
Yeah.
So many amazing things. I just also found out that if you have high cholesterol, your avocado seed, you grind them, you make it into tea, you drink them. Now, if you look into these things, these are all our traditional remedy.
True.
So kudos and hey to the African medicine.
It's just crazy.
It doesn't give you that kidney issue. It doesn't make you feel somehow. It doesn't destroy your liver if you take the medicine that's supposed to help you.
What if you just didn't know that he was doing that? Because you couldn't measure and know dosage.
You have a point there.
So what if he was actually doing that? Right? Because there are some agbo that they give you that's really, really heavy. And then it now causes kidney issues. Why? Because it's just too strong. Right? And you were probably supposed to take only one capful. But because you wanted to get healed sharp, you drank like one full bottle.
That is why we're advocating for a marriage.
Yes,
of
between
the traditional and the modern. Now, the modern would deal with, maybe like your measuring system.
Yeah.
The certain quantities, the dosages as they would call them, the dosage you're supposed to take and all of that. And maybe science will also help you in knowing the composition of whatever it is in your blood. So you continue taking this thing that would not harm you. And in the process, the goal is for you to get healed.
True. Sometimes I'm suspicious of modern medicine and big pharma because I know they want to just keep us in a loop of needing them. Yesterday, I went to change my glasses and they were like, oh, you need to do this test, that test, and all of that. And in my head, I'm like, do I need this or do these people just want to take my money? You know, so I was just thinking and thinking. Eventually, I gave in. So after the test, they were now like, now we'll prescribe eye drops for you and medication because it's like you have glaucoma in your future since you have a history of glaucoma in your family, and then this medication you take it for the rest of your life. So in my mind, I'm like, big pharma has caught me. So you're telling me now, once I start these eye drops, well, I started yesterday, and this medication, so for the rest of my life now. So now they've caught me for the rest of my life. Even as I'm wearing the glasses, I still have to be taking eye drops daily, medication
But do
daily.
you see improvements with it?
It's just yesterday I started. And I've been using my glasses and all of that. I don't know why I
Do you have any
need...
birds around your compound?
What?
Check them out.
Observe.
Maybe they breed leaves.
Observe.
I'll observe.
Because I have a theory. I've always wanted to ask, like, is this medicine made, is it to cure you or is it just to treat you and keep you in a loop?
To treat you. They treat the symptoms to keep you in a loop. Yes, I'm sure they have their benefits. The painkillers, we take them sometimes, we feel better, but then it's treating the pain, the symptom, but it's not treating what is causing
the root cause of that
do you
pain.
get? So yes, it has its benefits, but also there are some people that are in it for the profit, simply the profits.
Exactly. So I was going to also say that there are some situations where, you know, it completely goes away, right? I mean, for example, if you check cancer survivors and everything that do chemo and all of that, it's modern medicine still.
Yeah.
And by the time they're done with the treatments and they go for the checkup again, the tumor that was there before the chemo is gone.
Yeah, it does work.
You know, so
sometimes.
I feel like it does work. But just like you said, there's also greed in a lot of big pharma.
Yes.
There's greed. Like, so that instead of one dose healing you completely of that thing, it's like, let's spread those
You'll
doses
be like doses
across,
of radiation.
you know, let's spread those doses across like 12, months so that you always use that product every month. They know that they're always going to receive money every month for those drugs.
What I admire-
Maybe that's why the African remedy is just in a cup.
Yeah.
The biggest champion of African remedies.
What I advocate for, to be honest, is that there should just be more research made on African medicine.
Yeah.
True.
Right.
Very true.
Let's know the components of this tree, this fig, this, what causes it, like what makes that tree or leaf to
Mr.
heal
G,
you. You understand?
we're giving you this mantle now.
Yes.
You have to go back and call your auntie, tell her, please describe this plant, tell us the traditional name, send us a picture and all of that. Let's start from there.
I'll definitely do that.
Yes.
I think maybe what is needed more in the African setting is documentation,
Yes.
some scientific methods to see, okay, this leaf has this component, this leaf has this component. If you mix this leaf and this tree bark together, it gives you the medicine to cure a certain ailment. But this is normal. I can't say it's non-existent, but I think more needs to be done to see how this thing becomes a system in the African society, so that, who knows, maybe through us, all of the answers to world issues could be solved in terms of health, public health, and ailment in general.
The first thing we should clear is the notion, because the moment you hear about it, black magic.
I
So
think
we
it's
need
been
to clear
demonized
the
by the
notion.
colonial
Yes.
masters.
Yes,
Yes,
that
but
will
now people are
demonize.
waking up. That consciousness is rising again. And just like you said about public medicine, when you were saying something about the Senegalese doctor who is also an herbalist, yes, I remember that there was this story of an African slave. He was originally from West Africa and he found himself in the Americas, in United States of America to be precise. He was a slave and there was a smallpox outbreak. But then he told them that back in his village in West Africa, they would take like some of the wound, the pus from the smallpox, and then give it to people in the society. So it will make you like
Inoculate them against.
Yes, and a bit immune. So when
Interesting.
there's a smallpox outbreak, you have it, but just mildly, and that's how the whole
Like the way
community is able.
antivenom is created.
Exactly. So he told his
venom.
master, and his master, of course, contributed that to modern medicine. They were able to stop the smallpox outbreak, and his master was the one credited
That's
in the
where
Western history
vaccination
books.
came
But
from.
then now his name, Onesimus, is now part of modern medicine and modern history. Like, okay, this was the person, this was the slave at the time that actually told this European man that this is how we did it in West Africa. Try it and see. So Africans have definitely contributed to modern medicine.
Same thing goes to, I think, whiskey. I think there's a certain brew or whiskey or gin that was, done by the slaves, and the slave master saw it and like, give me the solution. And they made it into a commercial business.
Yes.
And today,
a very popular brand for that matter.
Yes. So we've actually created a whole lot. Even in assembly lines, the word plant was gotten from an African, a slave, who said the reason why they call it plant, he observes plants and how they do their thing. Okay. And that's why till today, an assembly plant is called a plant.
Oh, wow.
Because you put it in a system and you just put the components together.
I love hearing the origin of words, right?
So that is how, we've actually contributed a lot to, the advancement of the world. Yeah. But unfortunately, the world is just the way it is. But like I always say every chance I get, right now in the world, globally, it is Africa o'clock. And now that it is Africa o'clock, we need to seize the opportunity to take charge and see how we can push this narrative further so that it could be more scientific. And so the world will begin to see that, look, we have a lot to offer. I was really, really pained this morning. I was doom scrolling social media and I saw a post of somebody in Canada saying, these Africans, yada, 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 they've not done anything and so on and so forth. I went to the comment section and somebody said, I'm African, it's true, we've not done anything. And I remember, I remember the Great Wall of Benin. I had to just quickly write that down. Brother, please do not embarrass your family. Go read up on the Great Wall of Benin. Now, let's come back to science and, health. We've done a whole lot.
We have.
All of the mixtures and the concoctions and the remedies we've put together. Africa has something to say. We've been doing it for years. It's been unnoticed. It's been stolen. And we need to take charge of all of the things that, we have learned from our ancestors and even from, just watching nature, like with the example you gave. We learn from nature. We learn from the world. We learn from, the spirit being. And that is why we have been billions of years in existence and we are not going anywhere.
Put the nail on the head right there.
I still strongly believe that there are benefits to modern medicine. That
there are benefits. There's no doubt about that. There are benefits because without, modern medicine, there are certain things we would not know, like overdose, certain, blood levels, your blood work, and so many other things, like things that used to, take the lives of some Africans back then that would have been, subscribed, or should let's say ascribed to a certain being. That has changed because over time, like take the Mary Slessor story where some certain people were unaliving twin children, twins and all of that. So yes, it has come with its benefits. Nobody's kicking that, but you cannot just totally discredit the African invention, the African science, the African remedy, because they don't kill you as much as modern medicine would.
As much as.
Yes.
So it's a matter of choose your death. No,
not necessarily, because look, whether you like it or not, even with this advancement in modern medicine, people still die.
True.
People still die in their numbers.
Death is a part of life.
People still die in their numbers. So it's not as if it's the messiah to medicine or to health. It's just a remedy. It's just that it is more thorough. There are more scientific approach. There are more logical steps towards, modern science and medicine as to the African traditional, remedies whereby some things cannot be explained. We assume, but we see the results.
That's always the problem, the explanation.
So yeah, that's just what we're missing. And that's what we need to put into African traditional medicine. We just need steps. We need observation. We need proper record keeping.
True.
We can't just be like, my grandmother in the village boiled these herbs. What's the name? What's the scientific name? We even need to give some of them scientific names, like descriptions, diagrams, label them properly and all of that. How long should we boil it? Is it 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
How should we even take it?
Do you get, is it once a day? Is it twice in a week? All of that. So we just need to document our medicine better.
You guys have successfully I hear you.
However,
On a serious note, though, I mean, even down to accidents and breaking of bones. Do you notice that sometimes when they put the POP on your leg, sometimes it may not set in the right way? I don't know if that's a matter of the person who attended to the injury or it's ancient, medicine. Because when you go to the local bone setters,
they know how to do it well.
They know how to reset your bone.
Right. But they will set it for you and tell you can go home. And there's even one method that they use, right? Where when you come in, they break the leg of a chicken as well. Yeah.
Like the same type of fracture, just to know.
I see. They'll tell you to bring your X-ray.
Smart.
Wow.
They look at the X-ray. Then they break the chicken's leg in the same way, recreate the fracture.
Wow.
And then as you're healing, they'll also be observing the chicken. And when that chicken is fully healed, it means your own bones.
Observing.
I'm sure somebody. I'm sure
Observation.
somebody in the comment section will go, animal cruelty.
There's always someone.
I mean, you don't have to eat it on Christmas Day.
One of the ways he
Yeah,
dies.
now that you're talking about bone setting, I just remember that I read somewhere that the oldest bone setting remains were found in ancient Nubia, the neighbor of Egypt, in modern day Sudan.
Yeah.
That was what, 7th century. So imagine the most ancient human remains that had evidence of bones being set were found in Africa. So what are we saying? We can clearly see the influence of African traditional medicine on modern medicine. We've been doing these things. Even our traditional bone setters are still working hand in hand with modern medicine. Yeah, some people go to the hospital and they'll still be limping. They'll be like, let me kukuma go to my bone setter. And they'll go there, it'll work, everything is good.
I think what, with reference to the bone setter, maybe an upgrade would have been better. Add some,
like I
upgrade
said,
some. Because
the modernization of traditional medicine.
Yes. So what we should be advocating for is the modernization of traditional medicine.
Yes, the improvement. It should get better because they have actually put the standpoint, like the starting point for those medicines.
So they just need to evolve, have better methods.
But what if they lose details? Because we already come from a place where workflows weren't documented and dosages and all these things weren't documented. So what's to say that in process of modernization, we don't forget some things and
they'll have to keep observing.
And I think for them to do that, first of all, you have to have a record of what the ancient wisdom and knowledge you have for you to, make it modern. So I don't think we'll lose it. We'll just have proper documentation. It will actually help.
Yes,
because for you to modernize something, you need to know the history. You need to understand
the start-off
point about it then before you move ahead. So I think
matter
that would
what,
help.
Some information will be lost because that's the problem with oral history. But let's start documenting it so that it's not just oral history, oral medicine.
Yes. So that tomorrow now, if you say your leg was ill when you went to the village, they ask you how now? You say, no, they just tied something. Now, what did you put on your body? You can't explain it. So the documentation process will actually streamline a better way that how traditional African medicine will even be viewed in the world view. Like how the world will actually see it, and we actually need to stop the demonization. It shouldn't be straight off to, it's voodoo, it's black magic.
Exactly.
When we actually have ways that have been proven and tested over time that actually works. Yes. As you said earlier on, herbal medicine doesn't need you to believe in it for it to work. It's scientific, it's chemistry, it will work for you.
So to close out, I'll just say that, like you said, let's not demonize native African medicine. Once we hear herbalist or babalao or dibia, let our minds not straight go to something diabolic, something demonic, something bad. Let's think of it as one with nature. It's just a return to nature. We're not saying discard your modern medicine. We're saying marry the two together. Know when to use one, know when to use the other. And none should be demonized over the other.